Good afternoon, everybody. We will start here in about 4 to 5 minutes. Good afternoon again, everybody. If you are just joining us, we will just start here in just a moment. Good afternoon again, everybody. Welcome to the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction Child Nutrition and Food Distribution 2020 Back to School Workshops. You guys are in the general session. This is USDA updates and challenges of reopening. Just a few notes while our presenter is getting ready. Your volume button, pay attention. If I am too loud, please turn me down. If I am too soft, please turn me up. No handouts preloaded in this session, and you will not be able to raise your hand either, and you do not have a microphone to unmute yourself. But there is a comment box that is down on the bottom. If you do have a question or anything, please go ahead and type that in the box. If we do have time at the end of the session, we can answer a few questions. Otherwise, for your convenience, this recording will be available at the same meeting room that you just got into. So if you click on your link, this will be available there. A certificate of completion will be mailed to all participants who have enrolled through Eventbrite. The Q&A sessions from this and our other sessions will be available on our child nutrition website. I do thank you for your attendance and your attention to these details. I am going to play a short video now that was sent from the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction Superintendent of Schools, Kirsten Basler.
Hello, thank you for being here today. I want to welcome you to this year's School Nutrition Program Back to School Workshop. You do some of the most important work that is done in our schools. You make sure our students have access to healthy, tasty, and nourishing food. Students have a hard time learning when their stomachs are growling, and you get up early and stay late to make sure students aren't going hungry. You help set the foundation for learning. It is difficult for even the best teachers to provide instruction to a hungry student. And I want to especially thank you for the outstanding job you did in serving food to our young people during last spring's pandemic school closures and throughout this summer in many of our communities. Our students couldn't come inside the school buildings, but you made sure that they could continue getting healthy meals. Many students rely on your meals as their only source of good nutrition. You can't do your jobs from home. We can have distance learning, but there's no such thing as distance cooking or serving. You chose to set aside your own health concerns to make sure our students had healthy and nutritious food. And often you provided something extra, like a sweet note with a student's lunch. I salute your commitment to go above and beyond to serve our students. I realize that you're also facing many challenges as we look toward the upcoming school year. How will you provide enough vegetables without a salad bar? Will I have enough paper bags? Will I have a spoodle long enough to provide the proper social distancing? Each of our school districts is preparing new plans for distance learning and health and safety. The governor was clear. We must provide a safe, secure, and healthy place to learn and work. And all of you play an important role in carrying out these plans. Your dedication, your imagination, and your problem-solving skills are crucial during these uncertain and unprecedented times. Please remember that the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction Child Nutrition and Food Distribution Office is always available to answer your questions, provide technical assistance, and to help you work through the endless variety of situations that you will face. Don't hesitate to contact us for help in resolving any issues that arise. I want to thank you again for your service and your devotion to our students. You play such a critical role in our education system, and we at the Department of Public Instruction always keep that in mind. Have a great school year.
Thank you, Kirsten. So here is Linda Schleyer, our director, with our general session. I can't hear you, Linda. Linda, I think you're, there you go.
Okay, there you go. Can you see my presentation?
No, not yet. There you go. School year 2021.
Thank you. Thank you. So welcome everyone to our school year 2021 general session. I'm so happy to be here to present to you and share with you information that we have. To start though, I thought it would be important to kind of talk about what we've been through, because this is really going to set a stage to where we are going. We all know the schools closed March 16th, 2020. The governor, within his executive order 2020-04, did include a requirement to develop plans for future continuity of food nutritional programs. Through this, we found that the emergency summer food service program would be the most useful program for serving children outside of school during school closures, with multiple different USDA waivers that were granted. The emergency food service program is a USDA program available to schools for feeding students when schools closed. It's actually just another form of the summer food service program, but we called it emergency summer food service program because there are so many different nuances and waiver requirements. Just it doesn't look anything like our normal summer food service program. And we did need to be able to delineate that between regular versus emergency. There were different regulations and procedures than the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program, and many of our school districts had never worked with the Summer Food Service Program before, so that did cause additional struggles. Some of the differences were the reimbursement rates and eligibility. Summer food allows for open or closed enrolled sites. All meals are served free of charge and claimed at the same rate. So there was no free or reduced price eligibility involved there. There is some requirements for some sponsor and site training and monitoring. And then the meal pattern is different than the school nutrition programs. There's no requirements for whole grains, vegetable subgroups. The milk requirements are slightly different. And then also no requirements for the potable water, offer versus serve, and local wellness policies. So you can see there was a big change that happened very, very quickly. So the results of our summer food service program, I thought I would share with you some information comparing this spring from middle of March through May 31st compared to April and May of 2019. With the Emergency Summer Food Service Program, we had 172 sponsors. I think when we added it all up, it was probably around 400 sites. We did not collect claims on a site basis. We had the sponsors just combine all of their claims for their sites into one. However, when I went on the spreadsheet that we kept, it looked like around 400 sites. Those could be any type of site, such as a pickup at school, home deliveries, maybe bus stop sites, multiple different types of service options there. A total of 1,732,470 breakfasts were served, equaling $4,112,244 of reimbursement. There was 1,811,534 lunches served for a total of $7,484,832 of reimbursement. That's for our Emergency Summer Food Service Program, middle of March through May of 2020. Compared to the NSLP school breakfast program meals served and reimbursed in April and May of 2019, one thing to note here is we didn't get those half of March included with these numbers. However, there was at that time, 1,168,543 breakfasts with a reimbursement of $1,397,679 and 3,183,667 lunches reimbursed at $4,613,053. So you can see that there was definitely some changes, even though the number of meals served is lower. You can see that the reimbursement altogether was quite a bit higher. On this next slide, I'm going to tell you right now that my one statistic for lunch increases was incorrect. There was 48% with the Emergency Summer Food Service Program. There was a 48% increase in breakfast served. However, there was a decrease in the number of lunches served. The reimbursement number is correct, though. Overall, there was a 93% increase in reimbursement over the 2.5 months of Emergency Summer Food Service Program operations compared to April and May of 2019 through the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program. So you're kind of wondering why. First of all, the Summer Food Service Program has a much higher reimbursement. All of the meals are reimbursed at a rate that's even higher than the free rate for the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program. There is an additional administrative fund amount that's added on to that is not available through the National School Lunch Program. Meals were served to any child. A child did not have to be enrolled at school. Through the summer food service program, any child between the ages of 1 and 18 or higher, if they are disabled, can be served a meal through the summer food service program. And many districts did outreach to meet those children and to welcome them and to serve meals for them. Another thing was weekend meals. Meals could be served for weekend days, and many districts did offer meals over the weekends. Breakfast and lunch could be served together. So families could pick up meals and they didn't have to go back for every single meal at one time. They could pick up meals for breakfast and lunch, and even for multiple days served at one time. So there was many flexibilities involved there that did lend to increases in meals served, and ultimately increases in reimbursement. Of course, at reimbursement, we normally have 203 sponsors that participate in the National School Lunch Program, compared to 172 sponsors that did the Emergency Food Service Program. So there are about 30 sponsors that didn't get any reimbursement over that time, and were probably impacted, ultimately impacted quite a bit financially. Another thing to point out, though, is that during this time, when those emergency summer food service program meals were being served, food and supply costs were increasing, or even in some cases, such as some of those supplies, non-existent. So many struggles were found just trying to determine what can be served, how it can be served, finding supplies, all of that. So that increased reimbursement also did entail quite a bit of increased challenge. Part of all of the emergency summer food service program, how we were able to do it was based on many waivers that we received from USDA. These waivers provided program flexibilities and contingencies available to serve program participants and ease program operations and protect the health of participants and program staff. 8 waivers affected the emergency summer food service program. So you can see there was some significant waivers going on there, and the waivers extended through July 31st, 2020 or later. Some of the waivers for the emergency summer food service program was a waiver for unanticipated school closures. Prior to getting this waiver, if there was an unanticipated school closure, the summer food service program could be operated, but not in school buildings. It would have to be in a non-school facility. So that we did get a waiver for that. So obviously the program could be run through schools. Non-congregate meals, that was a very key waiver. Normally with all of our programs, meals have to be served in a congregate setting. And of course, with the COVID, problems, the last thing we want are people congregating in areas. So there was a waiver to allow those meals to be served in a non-congregate way. Also, the parent or guardian meal pickup, that allowed parents or guardians to pick up the meals for their children without having to haul their children with, or causing additional burden on the parents and guardians. Many spoke of the fact that they could stop and pick up the meals during their lunch hour, or at a time that's more convenient to them, without having to worry about picking up their kids or hauling kids along. Mealtimes was another important waiver. That is a waiver that allowed the schools to serve multiple meals at one time. For instance, serving breakfast and lunch at one time, or even serving 5 days worth of meals at one time. If we wouldn't have received that waiver, we would not have been able to do that. Area eligibility. One of the requirements with the summer food service program is that it can only operate in areas of economic problems, or low income areas. And that severely limited many of our school districts in being able to offer meals to their students. We did receive a waiver that allowed the emergency summer food service program to operate in areas that did not meet those area or low income eligibility requirements. One of the things with this is that we are going to need to be able to support, as part of reporting on these waivers, looking at increases in unemployment, you know, what happened economically in those areas to support that area eligibility. Many of our districts chose to just focus on making, you know, outreach more to the free and reduced priced eligible students. That is another way of meeting that requirement. There was a waiver for the 60-day reporting. That was for the February and March claims in case the districts weren't able to get those claims in within the 60 days. That waiver obviously has expired. Or actually, it hasn't expired. If some of the districts haven't been able to get their claims in with that 60 days, that waiver would still be available. Monitoring, both at the state and sponsor level, it gave some relief with monitoring, particularly doing the on-site monitoring, so that, you know, monitoring activities should continue to be happening as much as possible, but the on-site monitoring where a person actually has to be in person has been, you know, was relieved for a period of time. Our office has been doing many desk audits where we're still monitoring and contacting our sponsors and collecting information to, you know, meet that requirement, but we are not required to go on site and do an on-site monitor. And then the last one is the meal pattern. And the meal pattern waiver was available if there would be like a break in supply chain where you are unable to get a certain meal component. Milk, I think, was a big one in some cases, but it was on a case-by-case basis, and the district or the sponsor contacted our office for approval for that waiver. So a little bit more into these waivers and expiration dates. The unanticipated school closure waiver expires April 30th of 2022. So that one actually is available to us for a couple more years, which is nice. Non-congregate meals is allowed in both. It's also allowed in the National School Lunch Program, CACFP, and summer food. So it is available to all of our child nutrition programs. That expires June 30th, 2021. So that one is still going to be available to our sponsors. The parent and guardian meal pickup, program operators distribute to parents or guardians, the state, but we must ensure that the program operators are able to maintain accountability and program integrity. This would be particularly where they're not picking up meals, going home, dropping them off, and then coming back for another set of meals. There's got to be a way to prevent that double dipping or serving more than one meal per child. This is also allowed in National School Lunch and School Breakfast and summer food and in the CACFP. That would be more with the CACFP at-risk meals, and that also expires June 30th of 2021. The mealtime waiver, as I said, it waives the meal service time requirements, includes the ability to serve multiple meal types at one type and for multiple days. It expires June 30th of 2021. The area eligibility does not extend into the next school year, and that one expires August 31st, 2020. The 60-day reporting, that is still available, but it's only for the months of January and February, actually. I don't see any of those waivers having to be used. And then the monitoring allows desk audits in lieu of in-person reviews. We have done many of our emergency summer food reviews already. The desk audit portion of the waiver expires August 31st, 2020. administrative reviews for school year 1920 may be postponed until 2021. That would be for schools. And this portion of the waiver expires June 30th of 2021. The meal pattern waiver, there have been some extensions, but it has changed somewhat. It's a waiver of the requirements to serve meals that meet the meal pattern requirements. The state agency should consider requests that are targeted and justified based on plans to support access to nutritious meals while minimizing potential exposure to COVID-19 during school year 2020-2021. So you can see that this is slightly different than those first meal pattern waivers that were geared more around food supply chain, where something would not be available just because of a business shutting down or that. This is more towards what are you going to do to support access to nutritious meals while minimizing potential exposure to COVID-19. So it might be meal pattern waivers that you might need in order to be able to serve meals to students that are distance learning, or challenges that might occur with serving in the classroom that would be possibly related to meal pattern requirements such as the vegetable subgroups. USDA expects and strongly encourages program operators to maintain and meet the nutrition standards for each program to the greatest extent possible. And the state agency, again, must approve the use of this waiver on a case-by-case basis. And of course, all of our waivers, we have to report to the USDA FNS regional office about these waivers when they are being used. This applies to both the school lunch, school breakfast, and CACFP, and expires June 30th of 2021. Some additional waivers that we have received. There was a waiver for the local school wellness policy triennial assessment. Those assessments were supposed to be done by June 30th of 2020. These districts may choose to accept the new deadline of June 30th of 2021. There is also an offer versus serve flexibility for senior high schools. This waives the requirement to serve meals using offer versus serve to senior high school students. The CDC has recommended that schools serve individually plated meals in classrooms instead of communal cafeterias. Schools attempting to adhere to this guidance may be unable to also effectively adhere to offer versus serve. This would also enable schools to offer complete meals for delivery or pickup for students doing distance learning. This waiver is effective July 1st, 2020 through June 31st, 2021. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll stop and see if Scott has any questions for me at this time.
Hi, Linda. It's Tara. Sorry, I'm little feedback. I do not have any questions currently.
Okay, thank you. So looking at the emergency summer food service and some of the challenges that were faced, of course, a lot of unknowns to start with. So, how do we do social distancing? What about masks? What do we do with possible positive cases? Product availability was definitely an issue in some areas. A lot of uncertainty. We heard a lot about staff burnout because most school cooks are done, cooking at the end of the school year, or are not used to making meals for weekends or for packing hundreds of meals to be picked up, or meals to go, basically, sack lunches. So it definitely had a huge, there's definitely a lot of challenges to be faced. And another challenge that we've heard quite a bit about is just the financial impact on the school food service fund. Can't say enough about that. This was unprecedented, unexpected, and definitely needs a lot more work in planning to how can we handle some of these issues. So for school year 2021, what we know, some of the USDA waivers will still be in effect. We have that unanticipated school closure waiver, the non-congregate meals, parent pickup, the meal times, meal pattern, and the offer versus serve for high school. Those are all waivers that are in effect through June 30th of 2021. We have requested a waiver for potable water. That would be for instances where it's just really difficult to get potable water. Definitely any meals sent home. Of course, we're going to assume that they have potable water at home. But even, in cases where the school relies on a water fountain for their source of potable water when the meals are being served, and water fountains, we heard through the sanitation session that Rhonda did, they're not recommending that they use water fountains because they're high touch and they would require quite a bit of cleaning. So we're requesting that waiver for some instances. Again, I believe this one's going to be on a case-by-case basis, so it would have to be requested. We don't know when, if we have it yet. I just submitted it within the last day, but I think we'll get it. It's just going to be one where it will be like the meal pattern waiver, where it will have to be requested by individual districts. We also have the North Dakota K-12 Smart Restart Guidance, and that's the DPI guidance that is available to all districts on what needs to be done in order to open their schools for the next school year. One of the components of that restart plan is a health and safety plan, and this is text taken straight out of the restart guidance. Each district must create a health and safety plan. The plan should meet the needs of each school, must be created in consultation with local health professionals. Health and safety plans must be approved by each school district's school board, and these plans must also be published on the school or district's public website. Non-public, private, or parochial schools are not required to create these plans, but are strongly encouraged. And each district that is required, each district that is required to conduct tribal consultations under the Every Student Succeeds Act must consult with tribal leadership. The 15 RCCIs in North Dakota are encouraged to implement the North Dakota Department of Health's recommendations for congregate settings whenever possible. In that situation, it's a residential facility, and there will, out of need, be congregate settings in many cases. This is a map of the different health units in the state. It's not all that easy to see, but it is on the DPI website with the K-12 restart guidance. There are, in some cases, there's city county health departments or health districts. There's multi-county health districts, single county health districts, and in single county health departments. And then on this next slide, I do have a list of all of the different health units or health departments, and you can see that many are by county, and then the tribal health units. So these are live links, and I will be sending out this PowerPoint as a handout after this presentation. So a person could just go into this presentation and click on the live links to access their particular health unit or health department for additional information. So the health and safety plans, some of the frequent questions we're getting about school meals, and I could add about 20 more after Rhonda's presentation. Are we required to feed meals in classrooms? Are we required to wear masks? Can we still send meals home for kids? And what if one of our staff members tests positive for COVID-19? All of those questions are being answered, through the, first of all, it's up to the school district on what they do, what their plan is. And so Our office can provide guidance and can provide resources, but we can't make that decision for the districts. The Department of Health has developed many resources, and these are also on our DPI website, and they are handouts with this session. Some resources, recommendations for schools, close contacts in schools, and then there's an exclusion decision tree for symptomatic individuals in schools. So there's actually kind of a decision tree based on the symptoms of an individual and whether or not they should be quarantined, or they're okay, or if they should be sent home. All that information is on our DPI website. It is a handout for this session. This is another handout. It's called the North Dakota Smart Restart. This was sent out because some of the decisions that the districts are making are based on the risk level in North Dakota. Right now, the risk level in North Dakota is green. Schools have been asking, well, who determines the color of our state? Well, the governor consults with the North Dakota Department of Health to make the determination if and when a state or specific county may change colors. And that is one of the things the governor has said, that if there are spikes in cases in certain counties, rather than, change everything for the entire state, there might be changes specific to a county that might be, showing a lot more cases than in other counties. Some of the other questions, I'm not going to read these off, but you can see that there's a lot of questions and a lot of answers provided here. Again, all of these resources are within the handouts for this presentation. If you haven't seen them, I really encourage you to read through them because they're very thorough and they really answer some important questions. For the child nutrition programs, we have also developed some guidance. Again, it's a handout with this session. We have a restart guidance, and this is the guidance that we added to the North Dakota K-12 restart manual per se. These are guiding questions to inform decisions related to how the school nutrition programs may continue to meet student needs in a variety of settings, especially when students are unable to get meals. So these are more like guiding questions, or how are you going to serve meals? How are you going to ensure social distancing? What are you going to do? What have you communicated with your vendor to make sure the supplies and food that you need are available? Some very basic questions, but they're very guiding questions. So reading through them might make you think, well, I really haven't thought of that. So it kind of pushes you to look into further to get further information. Then we have planning for re-entry to North Dakota School Food Service. This is more guidance. These are just guidance and suggestions. Many of the things are probably what you saw during Rhonda's session on food safety. It's suggestions. One of the things was about salad bars and share tables. The one thing I didn't think of that was brought up during Rhonda's session was prepackaged silverware and how silverware will be, distributed. So we will be continuing to update our guidance as we get new questions and as we get new information. Then along with this guidance is our back to school workshop sessions, two that I feel are very relevant to the questions that you might have are about the food safety and beyond that Rhonda did earlier and will be repeated later this week. And then challenges in the kitchen. That one's going to be more about how are you going to handle some of these new food service options and some really good tips on what you can do. So one of the things that we've received questions about is providing meals to distance learners. And I know many schools are not planning on doing distance learning, but there could be a need to change if there's a big outbreak in your school, or in some districts, they have just decided a portion of their students are going to be starting at distance learning. Whether or not you can prepare or serve and claim meals to distance learners really depends on whether the students are homeschooled, where the parent or other adult provides the educational services, or if they're distance learning, where the school provides the educational services. So that is one key thing to learn. The district may serve and claim meals to students that are distance learning. They cannot for students that are homeschooled. That's because those students that are homeschooled are not officially enrolled in the district. The district can indicate, in order to determine if they're homeschooled or distance learning, you can ask your district, because they do indicate that in PowerSchool, and we can see that on our end because PowerSchool uploads their information into our state automated reporting system, or STARS. Some things to know about the meal served to distance learners is it's not going to be emergency summer food service like we had done last spring. The meals will be claimed through the National School Lunch or School Breakfast Program, and meals can only be served to students enrolled in school. Pre-K students can be served and claimed if those students are enrolled at the school. Meals served to non-students or homeschooled students cannot be claimed. And the meals are claimed by individual student eligibility. So that would be whether the student is free, reduced priced, or paid eligible. Meals may be dropped off or picked up by the parent or guardian, and multiple meals may be distributed at one time. You may only claim meals on days when instruction is provided or when distance learning is occurring, because I understand that when a student is distance learning, they're not necessarily meeting with their instructor every single day, but it is considered a day when they are learning, and so that would be a day when meals could be claimed. However, no meals can be claimed on weekends or holidays or school holidays. If a school is open for childcare on non-instructional days, meals may be claimed through the Child and Adult Care Food Program. However, the district would have to sign up with our office to participate in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. Schools that meet the area eligibility requirement of having 50% of the enrolled students eligible for free reduced price meals and offer an education or enrichment program during those non-instructional days may claim meals through the CACFP at-risk program, at-risk meal program, and those meals are all reimbursed at the free rate. CACFP at-risk only allows one meal and one snack to be claimed each day, however, and it's only during the school year. Some other meal scheduling options, and then, you know, associated options for meal service. If students are attending school in person for half a week and then distance learning half a week at home, the days that the students are not learning at school, the district could send meals home for those distance learning days. If there are a late start, say they only start at 10 o'clock in the morning and they go to school till 3, you could serve lunch and then send breakfast home for the next morning. So you're not serving breakfast at 10 and lunch at 11. That's another idea. Half days, if students attend in the morning, send lunch home with the student before they leave. If they attend in the afternoon, serve lunch when they get to school and send breakfast home for the next day at the end of that day. Elementary schedules will probably differ from the secondary schedules. I've seen that happening already with many districts. So flexible options are going to be necessary. And then I did see, again, about the childcare. There's some districts that are looking at having distance learning for some of their grades and then having space for the non-in-person elementary students going to a facility where they are basically in childcare so the parents can work. And so there's options for CACFP rather than National School Lunch Program. But that even gets a little gray, because if those students are going to a facility because their parents aren't at home and they need a place to go, but they are still like learning, doing their distance learning homework or that, then they could claim the meals through the National School Lunch Program. So it really, really depends on what's going on in those facilities as it pertains to distance learning. I'd like to check with Scott to make sure I'm still coming through okay. Okay, good.
Linda,
I got to notice that. Yes.
There is some questions.
Okay, I can break for questions.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Scott. Okay, one question is, oh, I'm on the wrong screen. What do we do with water coolers?
Linda, if you want to unmute yourself.
One suggestion that came up during the food safety session is that the school fills little paper cups and puts them out in a tray, as you know, where the students are being served, and then the student can just pick up a cup of water as they're going through the line. The requirement is to have water available during the meal service times. So if that could be done in an easy manner, that would work pretty well. Or else have an adult fill the glass for the student, so it's just one person handling that water cooler during that meal service time, rather than 100 students as they go through the line.
Okay. One more is, when you are talking about all these waivers, are they something that the schools have to fill out paperwork for each one, or is it already in place? She's asking, is there any extra paperwork?
Again, Linda, if you'd unmute yourself, sorry.
Thanks, Scott. That's a good question. All of those are in place at this time. The only two that we do require to approve on a case-by-case basis are the meal pattern, and then the potable water will be another one if we get that waiver. We haven't been approved for that one yet. Later on in this session, I will be talking about some reporting that we're going to have to collect, but it won't be like a bunch of extra forms. But I'll talk about that as we towards the end of the session. Are there any other questions right now?
Yep, got a couple more, or one more. Can we have students bring their own water bottles from home? You have to unmute, Linda.
You definitely, the school can have the students bring their own water bottles from home, but if there's a student that doesn't have a water bottle and it's a meal service, it's a meal time, the school needs to make sure that those students have access to water during that meal service time. Because some kids are going to forget their water bottle, and there has to be a way that they're going to be able to have access to water during that meal time if they want it.
Okay, we're good. You can carry on.
Okay, thank you. Oh, in this next slide, it totally talks about what we need to do. We are going to need to collect some information from our districts, and it's just so that we can track our waivers and we can understand what is going on out at the districts, and also have better ideas for the types of resources and information and challenges that you will be facing. So some of the information that we're going to be collecting is the meal service types. Are you doing parent pickup, multiple meals served at the same time, multiple days at the same time? We're going to somehow have to collect the days and times students are in school and or distance learning. Anything that falls under a USDA waiver, we will have to collect some type of information because we have to report on that to USDA. We're going to develop a Microsoft Office form. It's going to be as simple as possible. We'll send it out probably late August, early September, because I know many of you have not kind of nailed down exactly what's going to be going on. And it's not something that we need to know right away, but there will be a point where USDA is going to be coming back to us and saying what's going on in your state. And I'd rather be a little proactive than have to, send an emergency email to everybody and say, quick, we need this information right now. So you can just kind of look for this. It'll probably be more towards the beginning of September because I just know that when school starts, it's going to be total chaos. But it will be in the form of just a form that you fill in and submit to our office. And then we'll collect that information, compile it, and it will be available to anybody who's interested in what's going on. Some additional information for 2021. USDA is looking at additional waivers. I think a lot of it depends on some of the congressional activity that's going on right now with those additional stimulus bills. The HEROES Act, I believe, is one. There is a big push in many areas. I think some hunger advocacy groups and also the School Nutrition Association are requesting continuation of the area eligibility waiver, the ability to do the emergency summer food service program, even universal free meals. So there is quite a bit going on at that national level. We aren't hearing a whole lot of what the possibilities are, but I guess the one thing I can tell you is that you can expect probably some changes to what I'm telling you right now. There will be some updates. I can tell you there will definitely be something. As I mentioned, the meals are served through the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program. I'm going to be talking about production records a little bit and administrative reviews. I want to go over meal counts just because meal counts is an area where there's another high touch situation going on. And then finally, reimbursement rates. Production record books. And actually they are part of the handouts that we sent out. We have electric versions are located on our child nutrition website under SMP / meal production books. There's a separate, and I don't suppose this is going to be live, but I'm going to probably mess up my, oh. Can you see that on my screen?
No, we don't see it.
Okay, never mind. Okay, so on each of these, there's a link to, it's basically an email that went out through Constant Contact. It's our new way of sending out information to the schools with lots of information. So clicking on each of these will take you to that Constant Contact with all of the different pages, all of the information that you need for these different production record books. In case you want to download them and use them electronically or print them out, that is an option. However, we do have funds to print hard copies and they will be available. We're going to be sending out a form to sign up for these books, and once we get them printed, we will mail them out. So be on the lookout for a form from our office where we will be collecting information on production record books that you will be needing for the next school year. This is kind of what that Constant Contact looks on. So when you click on one of those links, you'll see a page that looks like this, and then each of these each of the different underlined text in there is a different link to a document. Administrative reviews. So these are the districts that are scheduled for administrative reviews for this next school year. We don't know yet whether or not we are required to do administrative reviews on site. That waiver does expire the end of August. However, there is definitely something, some work at the national level to first identify best practices for doing desk audits or off-site reviews, and then also the possibility of us being able to put off some of the reviews because we were able to move to a 5-year review cycle versus a 3-year review cycle a couple years ago. So I'm working with the school review staff, Rhonda, Deb, Tanya, and Kellen, to determine what review activities will go on. I know Rhonda had said there are some districts that really would like to get it over with and are anxious to get going, so that's wonderful. We might start looking into doing some desk audits, deciding just to do desk audits and hope to get the waiver down the road. So just stay tuned for more information about the administrative reviews, because there is some decisions that still need to be made, and we do have some flexibility in this area, and we'll share that with you fairly soon. Meal counts. So, you know, this day and age, most districts are using pin pads for collecting the meal counts through their POS system. And those pin pads are high touch surfaces. Every kid puts their fingers on them, and certainly that's not recommended. So some ideas for doing a non-touch method of meal counts. Barcodes, especially if students come through with their class. You could have even a list of pictures of the students within that class and a barcode for each student, and then scanning those as the student goes through the line. Even this was just an idea that I had, but I don't even know if it's possible, but older students could have their barcode on their smartphone, where they just pull it up on their smartphone and it gets scanned by the cashier. Smaller schools, you could look at going back to using a name checklist where a staff member or teacher marks off the students that receive a reimbursable meal each day. This definitely can work for a small school, but it's difficult it would be impossible for larger districts, of course. And then just using your normal POS system, the students could tell the cashier their number, and then the cashier enters the number. Or I have seen some POS systems that the cashier can pull up the pictures of all of the students within that class, and then the cashier just touches the student picture on the screen to record that meal. I know that there's a lot of other options out there, and I would imagine that districts that have a specific POS system may have already been contacted by their company with updates to their systems that will help with the social distancing or preventing that spread through kids touching things. In some cases, because you have to change your meal count method and your meal service types, new meal count method might work best when utilized at the beginning of the serving line. And the requirement right now is that meal counts be taken at the end of the serving line so that the meal is counted once it is determined that the student has received a reimbursable meal. If the new meal counts method might work better at the beginning of the serving line, you can request a waiver. In this case, send an email to Deb or Rhonda with 1, the reason why the meal counts need to be taken at the beginning of the line, and 2, how the school will ensure that the student trays will be checked at the end of the line to ensure the students take reimbursable meals. So if that's the situation that the district is looking at, make sure you contact Deb or Rhonda and talk about why and see about getting approved. We received the new reimbursement rates just last week. This is the lunch rates are with the additional 7 cents for meal reimbursement for meeting the meal pattern requirement. So lunch paid is 40 cents, reduced price $3.18, free $3.58. Especially needing lunch, that means they get an additional 2 cents per meal because 60% or more of the students within that district, and that's the full district, are eligible for free or reduced price meals. Paid is 42 cents, reduced price is $3.20, and free is $3.60. Breakfast, 32 cents for paid, $1.59 for reduced, and $1.89 for free. Severe need breakfast. Severe need breakfast means that 40% or more of the lunches claimed in the prior 2 years, so 2 years ago, were claimed at the free or reduced price rate. So yeah, this gets a little complicated, but our system does calculations for us. Severe need, 32 cents for breakfast. You don't get any additional reimbursement for breakfast for severe need, but you get an additional, I believe it's 37 cents for reduced price and free breakfast. So it's $1.96 for reduced price and $2.26 for free for severe need breakfast. After school snacks, 8 cents for paid, 48 cents for reduced price, 96 cents for free. At risk after school snacks, of course, are all claimed at the free rate of 96 cents.
Linda, we just have a couple minutes left to finish up.
Okay, I just have a couple slides. So for school year 2021, what we don't know if we're going to get any additional waivers. We don't know how difficult it will be in implementing new meal service models. We don't know what kind of changes in meal service will need to be done if there's positive cases, particularly looking at distance learning. They certainly don't know about the availability of menu items or supplies, or if there will be positive cases at your schools, particularly impacting staff. Predictions, I do feel that we will be seeing more USDA waivers. Certainly there will be lots more changes. Plans will need to be adjusted and fine-tuned over time. And I do predict that there will be a significant impact on school food service fund balances because of increased prices, reduced revenue, and increased labor costs because there will more than likely need to be more substitute employees and more employees having to take time off because of health issues. So suggestions for managing the unknowns, plan scenarios, make sure you're communicating with your administration and staff as well as your vendors. Students and parents, it's really important to get those free and reduced price eligibility information out there so they can apply, and then communicate about anything else that might be going on. If they're going to have to pick up meals for distance learning, you can't communicate enough when in these type of situations. Remember, you're going to need to be flexible, be prepared, cross-train your staff, and identify substitute employees wherever possible. Work with your local health unit and make sure to reach out to your peers in our office for ideas and assistance. I did add some handouts. There's some really good resources from No Kid Hungry Share Strength. These are resources that were part of your handouts, so I'll let you look through those. The meal service program options, that's a really good one for you. I recommend looking through it. And then finally, we really value your input. So we'd be very interested in knowing what resources are needed from our office. If you would like us to schedule more Teams meetings, I mean, we have found that these meetings are very easy to do, and it's a really good way to communicate, and we are very open to doing more of them. Other communications, like our constant contacts, and what are your main concerns? How can we help you figure that out? Finally, you can do it. school food service programs have proven to be adaptive in crisis situations. Nobody could say that more so after last spring. USDA has been responsive to SMP flexibility requests, particularly from those large groups of districts in SNA. School food service staff are hard workers and dedicated to students, and we will get through this school year together. I know we don't have time for questions, but if there are any in the chat, we will answer them and add them to our Q&As that we'll be posting on our website. And I just want to say again, thank you very much for everything that you do, and I hope you have a very good school year. If any of you are scheduled for the administrative session, I'll be probably starting that about 5 minutes late, just because that's my next session and I'm going to have to go get something to drink. So thank you very much, and I'll be talking to you soon. Bye.
Thank you again, everybody. Remember, this session is now over. Go ahead and leave this one. The admin review prep and the administration for school meals program will start here right now. Again, appreciate your time. Thank you.